Stray dogs visit Beggar every day. The reason shocked the world. The dim morning light stretched over the sleepy streets of the small town, its rays barely warming the chill in the air. Among the scattered market stalls and shuttered shops, a lone figure sat hunched on the cracked sidewalk. This was Ravi, a beggar whose name no one bothered to ask, and whose story no one cared to hear. Wrapped in a frayed blanket, Ravi seemed invisible to the world, a fixture of the street as common and overlooked as the litter swept by the occasional breeze. Yet, each morning, without fail, something extraordinary happened at his corner. One by one, they arrived, a pack of stray dogs, their wiry bodies and weathered coats reflecting lives of hardship. They weren't there to scavenge scraps or beg for food. Instead, they sat near Ravi, quiet and watchful, as if they were standing guard. Some rested their heads on his lap, while others wagged their tails at his gentle touch. The scene puzzled passers-by, but few gave it more than a fleeting glance. To them, it was a peculiar oddity, not worth their time. But to Ravi, these dogs were more than animals. They were his only companions in a world that had long since turned its back on him. One crisp winter morning, as a thin frost glistened on the pavement, a shopkeeper paused, observing the unusual bond. "Why do they come to you every day?" he asked, his tone equal parts curiosity and suspicion. Ravi looked up, his tired eyes glistening with something deeper than sorrow. "They come," Ravi murmured, stroking the ear of the largest dog, "because they know the truth." The shopkeeper frowned, taken aback. "The truth? What truth?" Ravi hesitated, his fingers trembling as he clutched the tattered blanket closer. Something I haven't shared with anyone, but someday, someone will ask the right question." The air between them seemed to thicken with tension. What secret could a beggar possibly hold that drew these dogs to him like moths to a flame? And why did his voice carry an undertone of fear? The shopkeeper walked away, shaking his head, but the words lingered in the cold morning air. Somewhere in Ravi's broken past lay a mystery that connected him to these strays. And it was a truth that, when revealed, would send shockwaves far beyond this forgotten street corner. What could it be? What bond tied a man with nothing to a pack of dogs that seemingly had even less? As the wind whispered through the empty alleyways, the question hung heavy in the air, begging for an answer that no one dared to imagine. Ravi hadn't always been the silent figure on the street corner, wrapped in a tattered blanket with only stray dogs for company. Once, he had been a vibrant young man, full of dreams and hope. Born into a modest family in the bustling outskirts of the city, Ravi grew up with aspirations as bright as the morning sun. His father was a factory worker, his mother a seamstress who pieced together garments to keep the household afloat. Though money was tight, their small home was filled with laughter, love, and an unshakable belief in hard work. From an early age, Ravi showed a knack for fixing things: radios, bicycles, even the old ceiling fan that had stubbornly refused to turn. He had a gift for making things work again. His parents encouraged his talent, saving every spare rupee to send him to a technical college. For Ravi, it wasn't just about learning a trade. It was a chance to build a better life for his family. But life, as it often does, had other plans. The factory where his father worked shuttered its doors without warning, leaving the family in financial ruin. Ravi was forced to leave college and take up odd jobs to support them. Yet, even in these trying times, he remained hopeful. He believed his luck would turn around. It was during this period that Ravi stumbled upon a stray dog, a skinny pup with matted fur and a limp. He found it shivering near a garbage heap one rainy evening. Despite his own struggles, Ravi couldn't ignore its plight. He carried the pup home, fed it scraps, and tended to its injuries. He named the dog Sheru. Sheru became Ravi's loyal companion, following him wherever he went. The bond they shared was unspoken but profound, a reflection of Ravi's kind heart and Sheru's unyielding gratitude. Over time, Ravi found solace in caring for the stray, even as his own burdens grew heavier. Years passed, and Ravi's family situation worsened. His father fell ill, requiring expensive medical treatment they couldn't afford. His mother, worn down by years of hard work, was unable to pick up the slack. Ravi tried everything: long hours at construction sites, repairs for meager pay, but it wasn't enough. When his father passed away, the fragile thread holding their family together snapped. Debts mounted, their home was repossessed, and his mother, overwhelmed by grief, retreated into herself. Ravi was left to fend for both of them, but the weight was too much to bear. One by one, everything he had worked for slipped through his fingers. The technical college he once dreamed of returning to became a distant memory. Friends drifted away, unwilling to associate with someone so deeply entrenched in misfortune. Eventually, even his mother left, seeking refuge with distant relatives. Ravi was truly alone, except for Sheru. Homelessness came gradually, like a creeping shadow. Ravi found himself on the streets, scavenging for food and sleeping in doorways. It was a harsh existence, but Sheru remained steadfast by his side. The loyal dog seemed to sense Ravi's despair, offering quiet companionship on the darkest nights. Ravi soon noticed other stray dogs joining Sheru. At first, it was just one or two, but over time, a pack formed. Ravi shared what little food he had with them, often going hungry himself. Despite his hardships, he found purpose in caring for these forgotten creatures. The streets became Ravi's world. He learned which alleys were safe, which shopkeepers were kind enough to spare a piece of bread. He observed the ebb and flow of the bustling town, its hurried residents too consumed by their own lives to notice the man on the corner surrounded by dogs. The town itself was a patchwork of contrasts. On one side, narrow streets bustled with vendors hawking vibrant fabrics and fragrant spices. On the other, modern glass-fronted stores catered to the wealthy. Between these two worlds lay Ravi's corner, a forgotten patch of sidewalk where the downtrodden gathered. The town square was a place of both hope and despair. It was here that Ravi watched life unfold, the laughter of children playing, the worried faces of parents rushing to work, the occasional kindness of strangers who offered a coin or a piece of bread. And it was here that his pack of strays began to draw attention. People started noticing the peculiar bond Ravi shared with the dogs. They weren't just loitering. They seemed to protect him, as though they owed him a debt. Some townsfolk speculated that Ravi was feeding them stolen meat, while others dismissed it as a curious coincidence. Yet, no one dared to ask Ravi directly. Ravi's life took another turn the day a wealthy businessman, Mr. Kapoor, stopped near his corner. Kapoor, a man with a penchant for power, was intrigued by the beggar and his dogs. Unlike the others who passed by without a second glance, Kapoor studied Ravi with an intensity that unsettled him. "Why do they follow you?" Kapoor asked one evening, his voice sharp with curiosity. Ravi didn't answer immediately. He looked down at Sheru, who met his gaze with quiet understanding. "Because they trust me," Ravi said simply. Kapoor's lips curled into a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Trust is a rare commodity," he said, tossing a coin at Ravi's feet before walking away. From that day on, Kapoor began appearing more frequently, his interest in Ravi growing. It wasn't long before rumors spread. Kapoor was searching for something or someone, and his visits to Ravi were no coincidence. The once quiet corner was now a place of whispers and suspicion. Ravi, a man who had lost everything, suddenly found himself at the center of attention. But why? What did Kapoor want from a beggar and his pack of stray dogs? Unbeknownst to the townspeople, the answer lay buried in Ravi's past. A secret he had kept hidden even from himself. And as Kapoor's visits became more frequent, the fragile balance of Ravi's life began to unravel, setting the stage for a conflict that would change everything. Ravi's quiet existence began to shift after Kapoor's first visit. At first, it was subtle, just the occasional piercing glance from the businessman as he strolled past Ravi's corner. Then, it became more deliberate. Kapoor would linger longer, his eyes scanning the pack of dogs with unnerving interest. Though he said little, his presence carried a weight that left Ravi uneasy. Sheru seemed to sense it too. The once relaxed dog grew tense whenever Kapoor appeared, his ears flattening against his head, a low growl rumbling in his throat. The other dogs mirrored Sheru's unease, standing protectively around Ravi, as if guarding him from an unseen threat. One evening, Kapoor approached Ravi directly. His fine suit and polished shoes stood in stark contrast to Ravi's ragged clothing and the dirt-streaked pavement. "You have an unusual bond with these dogs," Kapoor said, his voice calm but cold. Ravi didn't respond. He had learned long ago that silence was often the best defense against the powerful. Kapoor smirked. "You may not realize it, but your little corner has become quite the spectacle. People are talking. Let them talk," Ravi muttered, pulling his blanket tighter around himself. Kapoor crouched down, his eyes level with Ravi's. "Do you know why I'm interested in you?" Ravi shook his head, though his gut told him nothing good would come of this. "There's something extraordinary about those dogs," Kapoor said, gesturing to the pack now growling softly behind Ravi. "And I want to know what it is." Kapoor's cryptic words hung in the air, but before Ravi could respond, the businessman stood up, brushed off his suit, and walked away, leaving Ravi and the dogs in an uneasy silence. Days turned into weeks, and Kapoor's visits became more frequent. Each time, he would watch Ravi and his pack, occasionally tossing a coin or a scrap of food, as if testing their loyalty. Ravi's corner, once a forgotten patch of the city, began to attract curious onlookers. Some marveled at the way the dogs seemed to obey Ravi without a single word, while others muttered darkly about witchcraft or sorcery. Ravi tried to ignore the attention, but it wasn't easy. The whispers and stares made him feel exposed, vulnerable. Even the shopkeepers, who had once been kind, grew wary, reluctant to engage with him. One night, Ravi awoke to find Sheru barking furiously. The other dogs joined in, their frantic barks echoing through the empty streets. Ravi scrambled to his feet, his heart pounding. In the dim light, he saw a shadowy figure dart away into the darkness. The next morning, he found a small note pinned to the wall behind him. It read, "Stay out of this, or you'll regret it." Ravi's hands trembled as he held the note. What had he done to provoke such hostility? And more importantly, who was behind it? A small victory. Despite the growing tension, Ravi found solace in small acts of kindness. One afternoon, a young girl approached his corner clutching a bag of bread. "For the dogs," she said shyly, placing the bag at Ravi's feet. Ravi smiled for the first time in days. "Thank you," he said, his voice thick with emotion. The girl's gesture reminded Ravi that not everyone viewed him with suspicion. There were still people who saw the humanity in his situation, who recognized the quiet dignity with which he cared for the strays. The dogs devoured the bread eagerly, their tails wagging in gratitude. For a moment, Ravi felt a flicker of hope, proof that even in the darkest times, kindness could still shine through. That hope was short-lived. One evening, Kapoor returned, flanked by two men who looked more like bodyguards than companions. They stood behind him, their arms crossed, their expressions unreadable. "I've been doing some research," Kapoor said, his tone casual but laced with menace. "Do you know how much people would pay for a dog like Sheru?" Ravi's stomach churned. "He's not for sale," he said firmly. Kapoor chuckled. "Everything has a price, my friend. You just have to find the right buyer." The businessman's words sent a chill down Ravi's spine. It was clear now that Kapoor's interest in the dogs wasn't innocent. He saw them as commodities, valuable assets to be exploited. "I don't want trouble," Ravi said, his voice steady, despite the fear gnawing at him. "Trouble?" Kapoor smirked. "I'm offering you an opportunity. Think about it. Money, food, a roof over your head. Isn't that better than this life?" Ravi didn't respond. He knew better than to argue with a man like Kapoor. Instead, he stood his ground, his silence a quiet act of defiance. As Kapoor turned to leave, one of his bodyguards stepped forward, as if to intimidate Ravi. But before he could take another step, Sheru lunged, his teeth bared, a growl reverberating deep in his chest. The other dogs followed suit, their ferocity a testament to their loyalty. The bodyguard froze, clearly unnerved by the sudden show of aggression. Kapoor raised a hand, signaling him to back off. "Interesting," Kapoor said, his eyes narrowing. "Very interesting." With that, he walked away, leaving Ravi and the dogs to grapple with the storm brewing on the horizon. That night, Ravi sat with Sheru and the pack, stroking the loyal dog's fur as he stared into the distance. He couldn't let Kapoor take them, not after everything they had been through together. The dogs weren't just animals. They were his family, his only source of comfort in a world that had turned its back on him. But how could he stand up to someone as powerful as Kapoor? Ravi felt trapped, caught between his fear of losing the dogs and his desperation to protect them. As he sat there, a plan began to take shape in his mind. It wasn't much, but it was all he had. Ravi would fight back, not with violence, but with the same quiet strength that had carried him through life's hardships. He didn't know what the future held, but one thing was certain: he wouldn't let Kapoor win. Not without a fight. Unbeknownst to Ravi, the confrontation with Kapoor was just the beginning. The storm was far from over, and the secrets hidden in Ravi's past were about to resurface, setting the stage for a battle that would test the limits of his courage and resilience. As the weeks went on, Ravi remained vigilant, watching over his pack and keeping a close eye on Kapoor. The businessman's visits had become less frequent, but Ravi knew better than to assume the danger had passed. Something about Kapoor's ominous words and unwavering interest in Sheru haunted him, gnawing at the edges of his thoughts. One rainy evening, just as Ravi was beginning to drift off beneath his makeshift shelter, a commotion erupted down the alley. Sheru's sharp bark jolted him awake. Ravi scrambled to his feet, his heart pounding as he looked out into the dimly lit street. There, in the shadows, stood two men, the same bodyguards who had accompanied Kapoor. They held a net between them, its fibers glistening in the rain. Behind them a black van idled, its engine humming ominously. Before Ravi could react, the men lunged forward, aiming the net at Sheru. The loyal dog dodged just in time, his movements quick and precise. The other dogs barked wildly, forming a protective circle around Sheru. "Leave them alone," Ravi shouted, his voice trembling with both fear and fury. The men ignored him, their focus fixed on Sheru. Ravi grabbed a broken piece of wood from the ground and swung it wildly, forcing the men to step back. His courage surprised even himself. "You'll regret this," one of the men hissed before retreating into the van. As the vehicle sped away, Ravi collapsed onto the wet pavement, clutching Sheru tightly. He could feel the dog's heart racing, its rapid thumps mirroring his own. But it wasn't over. Not by a long shot. The next morning, Ravi noticed something strange. Tucked beneath the blanket where Sheru often slept was a small envelope, sealed with a red wax stamp. Ravi hesitated before opening it, his fingers trembling. Inside was a photograph, a grainy image of Sheru standing proudly beside a young woman with a warm smile. Behind them was a sprawling estate, its towering gates adorned with intricate carvings. Ravi stared at the photo, his mind racing. Beneath the photo was a handwritten note. "He doesn't belong to you. He never did." The words struck Ravi like a blow. Who was this woman? And what connection did she have to Sheru? Determined to find answers, Ravi sought out Anil, a kind-hearted journalist who often passed by his corner. Ravi had once shared his story with Anil, who had listened with genuine interest. "This photo," Ravi said, handing it to Anil. "Do you recognize the place?" Anil examined it carefully, his brows furrowing. "This is the estate of the Kapoor family," he said. "They're one of the wealthiest families in the city." "But why do you have this?" Ravi explained everything, the visits from Kapoor, the attempted abduction, and now the mysterious photograph. Anil's expression darkened. "Ravi, there's something you need to know about the Kapoors. Their fortune was built on illegal activities, smuggling, trafficking, and other dark dealings. They've always kept their skeletons well hidden, but there have been whispers, rumors." "What does that have to do with Sheru?" Ravi asked, his voice rising. Anil hesitated before replying. "I don't know yet, but if Kapoor is involved, it can't be good." Driven by a growing sense of unease, Anil began digging into the Kapoor family's history. What he uncovered sent shockwaves through both him and Ravi. Years ago, the Kapoor estate had been the site of a grisly crime. The young woman in the photograph, Meera Kapoor, had been found dead under mysterious circumstances. Her beloved dog, Sheru, had gone missing the same night. Though the family claimed it was a tragic accident, whispers of foul play had circulated among the staff and neighbors. "Are you telling me the Sheru is her dog?" Ravi asked, struggling to process the revelation. "It seems likely," Anil said. "But here's the thing. Why would Sheru end up here, with you, after all these years?" The question hung in the air, heavy with implications. That night, as Ravi sat by his corner, piecing together the fragments of the story, a figure emerged from the darkness. It was Kapoor, his face a mask of restrained anger. "I warned you to stay out of this," Kapoor said, his voice low and menacing. "What do you want with Sheru?" Ravi demanded, standing his ground despite the fear coiling in his chest. Kapoor's eyes narrowed. You don't understand what you're dealing with. That dog is the key to secrets that should remain buried. Before Ravi could respond, Kapoor stepped closer, his voice dropping to a whisper. Walk away, Beggar. This is bigger than you. But Ravi didn't walk away. Instead, he clenched his fists, determination hardening his resolve. For too long, he had been ignored, dismissed as insignificant. But not this time. Not when the lives of his loyal companions were at stake. As Kapoor disappeared into the night, Ravi turned to Sheru, who looked up at him with unwavering trust. Ravi knew he was out of his depth, but he couldn't abandon the dog that had stood by him through thick and thin. With Anil's help, Ravi uncovered more about Meera Kapoor's death. Her diaries, smuggled out of the estate by a former maid, revealed a shocking truth. Meera had been planning to expose her family's illegal dealings. The night she died, she had sent Sheru away with a trusted friend, fearing for the dog's safety. It was no coincidence that Sheru had found his way to Ravi. The dog had been searching for someone who could protect him, someone who could stand up to the Kapoor's corrupt empire. Ravi's corner, once a forgotten patch of the city, now became a battleground. With Anil's reporting drawing attention to the Kapoor's dark secrets, Ravi found himself at the center of a storm. The dogs, once seen as mere strays, became symbols of resilience and justice. But Ravi knew the battle was far from over. Kapoor would not go down without a fight, and the road ahead was fraught with danger. The photograph, the diary, and the loyalty of a dog named Sheru had transformed Ravi from a beggar into an unlikely hero. And as the world watched, waiting to see how the story would unfold, Ravi braced himself for the challenges yet to come. The sky was an ominous grey as Ravi stood at the entrance of Kapoor's estate, Sheru at his side. The sprawling mansion loomed ahead, its high gates guarded by menacing security personnel. Ravi's heart pounded, but his resolve was unshaken. This was the moment he had been preparing for, the confrontation that would decide Sheru's fate and expose the Kapoor's buried secrets. He wasn't alone. Anil had rallied support, bringing along a small group of activists and journalists. Armed with cameras, microphones, and the damning evidence from Meera Kapoor's diary, they were ready to expose the truth. Stay close, Sheru, Ravi whispered, his voice steady, despite the storm brewing inside him. As the gates creaked open, Kapoor appeared, flanked by his bodyguards. His expression was a mixture of irritation and disdain as he spotted Ravi. You just don't know when to quit, do you? Kapoor sneered, his tone dripping with contempt. I'm not here for myself, Ravi replied, stepping forward. I'm here for Sheru and for Meera. At the mention of Meera's name, Kapoor's confident facade cracked. His lips tightened, and his eyes flickered with something akin to fear. You don't know what you're talking about, Kapoor said, his voice low and dangerous. Anil stepped forward, holding up Meera's diary. We know everything, Kapoor, about her plans to expose you, about her death, and about how Sheru was her last hope of escaping this house of lies. The tension was palpable as Kapoor's guards stepped closer, their hands resting on their weapons. The activists and journalists behind Ravi tensed, their cameras rolling, capturing every moment. You think you can come here and accuse me? Kapoor spat. You're nothing but a beggar and his mangy dog. Maybe I am a beggar, Ravi said, his voice rising. But Sheru isn't just a dog. He's proof of your crimes, and you can't silence the truth forever. Sheru growled, his stance protective, as Kapoor took a step toward Ravi. What do you want? Kapoor demanded, his voice shaking with suppressed anger. Money? A place to live? Is that what this is about? I want justice, Ravi said firmly. For Sheru, for Meera, for everyone you've wronged. Before Kapoor could respond, Sheru barked loudly, drawing everyone's attention. The dog darted toward the gate, stopping near a small, unmarked grave hidden in the garden. Ravi's heart sank as he realized what Sheru had found. Kapoor's face turned ashen as Ravi approached the grave. A small marker, barely visible beneath the overgrown grass, bore Meera's name. You buried her here, Ravi said, his voice trembling with emotion. Like she was nothing, like she didn't matter. Kapoor's composure shattered. She was going to destroy everything, he shouted. Our family, our reputation, everything we built. She was trying to stop your corruption, Anil interjected. And she paid the price with her life. The confrontation reached its boiling point as Kapoor lunged toward Ravi. But Sheru intervened, standing between them and barking furiously. Kapoor froze, his fear of the loyal dog evident. The cameras captured everything. Kapoor's outburst, the unmarked grave, and Sheru's bravery. You can't run from this, Ravi said, his voice steady despite the chaos. The world will know what you did. Kapoor looked around, his desperation mounting as the journalists closed in, their microphones thrust forward. You think this will change anything? He snarled. People like me always come out on top. Not this time, Anil said, stepping forward. This time, the truth wins. As the authorities arrived, alerted by the journalists, Kapoor was taken into custody. His protests and threats fell on deaf ears as the police escorted him away. Ravi knelt by Sheru, wrapping his arms around the dog. Tears streamed down his face as he whispered, We did it, Sheru. We finally did it. The crowd erupted into applause, cheering for Ravi and his loyal companion. For the first time, Ravi felt seen, not as a beggar, but as a man who had fought for justice against all odds. Anil placed a hand on Ravi's shoulder. You're a hero, Ravi, and so is Sheru. The story of Ravi and Sheru became a national sensation. News outlets covered their journey, highlighting the courage and determination it took to stand up to someone as powerful as Kapoor. But for Ravi, the greatest reward was knowing that Meera's story would no longer be buried. Sheru had led him to the truth, and together they had given her the justice she deserved. As Ravi and Sheru left the estate for the last time, the sun broke through the grey clouds, casting a warm glow over the city. Ravi looked down at Sheru, who wagged his tail happily. Let's go home, Ravi said, his voice filled with hope, and for the first time in years, he felt like he truly had won. In the days following the confrontation, Ravi's life transformed in ways he had never imagined. The video footage of his brave stand against Kapoor spread like wildfire, capturing the hearts of people across the country. Sheru's loyalty and the heartbreaking discovery of Meera's unmarked grave became symbols of unwavering truth and justice. Journalists camped outside Ravi's modest shelter, eager to hear his story. Activists rallied to ensure Kapoor's crimes were fully investigated, and authorities launched a thorough inquiry into the family's business dealings. For once, it seemed as though the wheels of justice were turning in the right direction. Ravi, once invisible to the world, found his voice. With the help of Anil and other supporters, he began speaking out against corruption and inequality. Invited to schools, community events, and even government forums, he shared his journey, how a simple beggar and his loyal stray had dared to challenge power and greed. You don't need wealth or status to make a difference, Ravi would tell his audiences. All it takes is courage, the will to fight for what's right, and a heart filled with love and loyalty, like Sheru's. Sheru became a local hero too. People lined up to meet the dog, who had played such a vital role in unearthing the truth. Ravi made sure Sheru's story was as celebrated as his own. The investigation into Kapoor's crimes unearthed a trail of corruption, deceit, and cruelty. Meera's diary served as a crucial piece of evidence, revealing the systematic exploitation and illegal activities the family had tried so hard to hide. Kapoor was sentenced to prison, his empire dismantled. The court ordered a proper memorial for Meera, whose bravery had inspired so many. At the ceremony, Ravi stood beside Sheru, his heart heavy but proud. "She wanted the world to be better," Ravi said, addressing the crowd. "And thanks to her courage, it will be. She's not forgotten anymore. Her voice is heard." With the support of well-wishers, Ravi opened a small shelter for stray animals. It wasn't just a home for dogs like Sheru. It was a testament to the power of kindness and second chances. The shelter became a sanctuary for both animals and people who needed healing. Ravi, once a beggar scorned by society, had found his purpose. Each wagging tail, each grateful smile, reminded him of how far he'd come. Ravi's story resonated deeply, offering a powerful moral lesson. Courage and compassion can change the world. His journey taught that justice doesn't always come from those in power. It often begins with ordinary people who refuse to back down. It reminded everyone that loyalty, like Sheru's, can overcome even the greatest adversities. The tale of Ravi and Sheru also shone a light on the value of standing up for what's right, no matter how daunting the challenge. It showed that even in a world riddled with greed and corruption, kindness and determination could prevail. As Ravi sat on the steps of his shelter one evening, watching Sheru play with a group of rescued puppies, he felt a profound sense of peace. His journey had been filled with pain, loss, and struggle, but it had also brought him purpose, love, and hope. He looked down at Sheru, his loyal companion who had been with him every step of the way. "We did it, boy," Ravi said softly, his voice filled with gratitude. "We didn't just survive, we made a difference." Sheru wagged his tail, his eyes sparkling with joy. And as the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in shades of gold and crimson, Ravi realized that the future was bright, not just for him, but for anyone willing to fight for what they believed in. The story of Ravi and Sheru would forever remind the world that true strength lies in the heart, and even the smallest acts of courage can ripple out to create something extraordinary. What would you have done in Ravi's place? Could you have stood up to someone as powerful as Kapoor, knowing the risks? And what about Sheru's unwavering loyalty? Doesn't it remind us of the bonds we sometimes overlook in our busy lives? This incredible story of courage, loyalty, and justice isn't just about Ravi or Sheru. It's a reminder that even the smallest among us can make a difference when we act with kindness and conviction. Their journey challenges us to reflect. What are we doing today to stand up for what's right? If this story inspired you, share your thoughts in the comments below. We'd love to hear what moments touched you the most. Did Sheru's dedication move you? Did Ravi's bravery give you hope? And don't stop here. Share this video with friends and family. Let Ravi and Sheru's story inspire others to believe in the power of resilience and compassion. If you enjoyed this story and want more tales like this, make sure to like this video, subscribe to our channel, and hit the notification bell so you never miss an update. Together, we can celebrate stories that matter, stories that remind us of the beauty of the human and animal spirit. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the next inspiring tale.